Welcome back to CoinDesk Live at Consensus, brought to you by BitGo. We are just getting warmed up for a jam-packed day 2 here in Austin, Texas. I'm Jen Sanasie. As you know, I'm joined by my co-host, Sam Kessler. Sam, what conversation has stood out for you so far?
Oh, what conversation has stood out? I mean, we've been talking a little bit about that poll. That was not the conversation itself, but this poll around like how crypto people are thinking about the election. And I think I've had a series of conversations that have been really election oriented. And so I think this idea that political candidates for the highest office in the United States need to at least be conversant or have people on their staff that are conversant in crypto as an expectation, not kind of like a cherry on top. That is something that's new. That's something that keeps on coming up and just does make this sort of a conference feel different than it has in past years.
I think that reiterates the fact that the theme here really is policy and regulation. Everyone is looking at the election.
Always the theme.
It is always the theme, right?
No, but there's always a theme, and I feel like this is, like you said, the theme this year, which does feel different.
Some other conversations we've been having have been about Web3, the metaverse, what life is going to look like in the future. But let's take a look. Let's turn the conversation to something that is a blast from the past. Joining us now is Napster CEO John Vlassopulos. John, welcome back to the show. You were here last year.
I was. It's good to be back. Good to be back. And vote on the political theme, vote Napster.
Vote Napster. Now, every time we talk, I say it's a blast from the past because every time I see you, people are delightfully surprised that Napster is still around. I think if you're of a certain age, that's how you were introduced to music on your computer, to streaming. It was the first time you could have music digitally. Yep. But it's a little bit different now. So talk to me, lay the foundation. Talk to me about what Napster is doing today.
Yes, I think as we were talking before coming on the show, I wear my T-shirt when I travel, so I get great reactions at the airport, people going, Napster man, like coming down the aisle, walking around the conference. So I think the brand love is really there. For a lot of people, I talked to a lady yesterday who didn't look old enough to remember Napster, and she goes, yeah, I remember it from middle school. So I think it goes all the way back. The brand has, we say, don't call it a comeback, it's been here for years. So the original decentralized Napster was then acquired by Real Networks and branded on top of Rhapsody, which was the first streaming service. So we have kind of like the two histories, both the rebellious Napster brand and then we're the original streaming service even before Spotify. So we've been running consistently through those years, and then we were taken private 2 years ago after being public in the UK by a group of TradFi and DeFi investors.
It's interesting to hear you use the word decentralized to refer to Napster, and I think that touches on something I, as a technology reporter, feel like people miss in crypto, which is that decentralization did not start with blockchain technology. There are other kinds. Yeah, so can you kind of talk a little bit about that? Like, do you feel like it's kind of been, co-opted by this movement, or how did decentralization differ, back in the early days of Napster?
Yeah, so I did a talk in Singapore at another lesser conference than your one, and it was talking about that. And I think a lot of the people who are involved in the new movement don't remember the kind of 90s era. So we were the first really decentralized platform overall. And I think the great thing about decentralization back then, it really was fully free and open. There were no gatekeepers. So all of us were the network. And I think the Napster 2 that we worked on but didn't have a chance to launch, we offered the music industry $1 billion to legitimize Napster, and a small group of us were working on the 2.0, and that vision of the future of what digital media and music could be was totally different to where it ended up. It was much more like, weirdly, what I'm pitching now, but that was 25 years ago. So we already had community. If you remember back then, we met investors who met their wife on Napster back in the day before social media got cleaved off. And the new version was going to have a $9.99 model. We were going to pay, we didn't call them node holders, but the community. And we were also going to cut in curators. So all the people that we thought it was going to be millions of magazines and record labels and DJs and clubs and festivals were going to kind of curate all the music. And they were going to have kind of a club structure and digital goods. So when I pull out my old deck from 99, 2000, very similar now, it's just the kind of the Swedish path where everything got centralized wasn't how it was meant to end up. So we're really going back to where we started.
It's like a return to form type of a thing for you.
Yeah, so we're excited. Music has always led the way. We led the way in media back in the day. We brought 80, 90 million people onto the internet. So we think now it's an exciting time as Web3 comes of age to kind of finally legitimize and bring that consumer side of Web3 versus just the kind of DeFi side.
The last time we talked, you had acquired a Web3 platform called Mint Songs. What happened with that acquisition?
Yeah, so we've, I suppose, breaking news on the CoinDesk live show. So we've now incorporated it, and we've now kind of rebuilt it and Napsterified it. We haven't launched it publicly, but will very soon. So we're going to revive that marketplace. Artists will be able to mint digital goods, videos, playlists. We found some patents around music playlists being minted on chain. So all of that is ready to go. We haven't publicly announced it, but I suppose we've half announced it now.
Breaking news. I love when people come on here and break news. I got to ask you, I spoke to the guys from Avenged Sevenfold recently, and they've done a really good job at incorporating Web3 into their fan experience, I would say. But it hasn't been easy for them. They have 4 full-time engineers on staff. And so I'm curious how you're thinking about attracting artists to a platform like this when it's definitely not it's not an easy feat, and to do it, they need to invest a lot of resources, a lot of time, and for a lot of artists, they just don't have the interest or the resources to do that.
Yep. So we're raising a growth round now on the equity side around a big Napster relaunch in 2025, which will be kind of our 25th anniversary. And the ambition is a whole new platform for artists and fans and curators, being that key other set that's been overlooked. And I used to work at a platform called Roblox. So think of a similar aspect where all those tools that artists would need, labels, magazines, to kind of monetize and connect with their communities, we'll build that technology. And next year we're going to go live with 2025 partners, kind of lighthouse examples in each of those segments. And then 2026 would be a full self-serve platform. So we don't want to have to have artists and even labels and worry about building all the tools. We have the music, which we think is key. So we have the same rights as Spotify. So we have all the music covered, and then on top of that, you can kind of build and monetize your communities through a mixture of traditional Web2. We have credit cards for all of our users, so it's easy, click, purchase digital goods, digital experiences, subscription, but then also where it makes sense, kind of Web3 tools in the background.
So it's interesting to hear you talk about video games. This brings me to, my next question, which is, I think that it's fair to say there's been a sort of stigma that has developed around Web3, around NFTs, as far as retail is concerned. I mean, you look at, like we mentioned with video games, there's some video game companies that have had to scrap plans or really, and go as far as to fully distance themselves from just the very idea of NFTs just because their audiences became allergic to the term after some of the crashes from a couple of years ago. I wonder if that has been a sort of headwind for you, or you found that stigma has dissipated in any way? Kind of an open question, but does that feel like it's changing in recent years?
Yep. So I think that the interesting thing, traditional gaming is a massive industry and is reasonably good at innovating. So it has community, it has digital goods, it has subscription. Music is not. So what we're seeing on the traditional music side is a major step change to a new set of platforms that will start to be material challenges to companies like Spotify and others over the next 5 to 10 years, Napster being kind of leading the charge of that new set of platforms, which doesn't have anything to do with Web3. So there's a bunch of things in the music industry around superfans. This, again, connection between artist and fan, monetization above and beyond subscription, which if you read all the music trades is the kind of trend across the board with those public companies. So we don't feel we need to lead with Web3, but
sure,
in the background, there are a bunch of things that kind of make sense around rewards, around kind of royalty payments, if you like, on the back end. So we don't think it needs to be front-facing as much, which is the whole kind of politely get rich quick kind of NFT era, which didn't feel good. So we feel we can lead with a lot of traditional, old-fashioned credit cards and engagement and community and video and all those things on the front end. But you'll see more of the, I suppose, the Web3 and blockchain happen in the background. One caveat being within Web3, metaverse is still in there, like my old world. So we think front end. We did a launch recently with an artist who dropped his record and did like a live chat in a 3D immersive space on Napster. This artist is called Rick Wilson. Super cool. So all the fans could hang out, and that's sort of the beginning of the community where fans can meet fans. Artists can have a 3D version of themselves, trick out these spaces. So expect more of that on the front end side around metaverse, and then maybe digital goods, etc., that are transacted in the background, where we would just take a cut. So I think a more platform model. We empower all artists, not like Snoop, artist by artist, big drops, which think is sort of a previous era.
Web3 aside, how are you thinking about taking market share from the Spotifys and the Apple Music?
So we feel pretty good. So I think when I came back to music when I was at Roblox, I think as we were talking last year, I presumed everything had changed in 20 years, but realized not much had changed. So there hasn't been a lot of innovation in the traditional DSP space. So I think the good and the bad of everyone going, oh, Napster, we love Napster. What's it doing now? Is they're not used to a certain interface. So we have a good user base, but not hundreds of millions. So when we come back with our big launch, we feel we can bring to market a whole new experience for fans that brings in social. So you can connect with all of your friends, which is natural for music and has been unnecessarily taken away. And then you can also kind of get deeper with artists and communities and curators that you love, DJs and labels and festivals, to transact on top. So the experience will look fundamentally different to what's available now. And we want to embrace all those curators. So your favorite festival will be on there and their crew, your favorite club, your favorite DJ, your favorite label, your favorite magazine. So kind of partnering with the curators as opposed to dominating all that curation with some of the current services. We think we can really have a good bite at the apple to start to bring people to an experience which we think they've always wanted, but just haven't been able to get.
John, thanks so much for joining the show. It was a pleasure having you back on the set.
Very good. And Sam, we'll get you a t-shirt this year as well.
Please.
Cool. Thanks so much.
Giving t-shirts out. All right. That was Napster CEO John Vlassopulos. We are going to take a quick break and we will be right back.